Hello and welcome back to part three of Simplifying the Business Insurance Rules FCA consultation paper. I would now share my screen and go through the remainder of the training session. Hopefully you're still with me on YouTube and you haven't been bored off. Um, right, so where did we leave off? We were literally discussing the changes to the threshold limits of commercial customers, bringing it in line with the FOS um, definition for eligible customers, and looking at the impact that that will have on insurers. So essentially, insurers will need to decide whether they'll continue to um, provide those additional protection to customers that are above that 50 employee limit and below the 250 employee limit. Um, because essentially, for you to then sort of carve that section of your business out, that could mean quite a lot of process change. Um, and also, it's quite important to remember that the high level rules, high level principle of business rules still apply in any event to all of your customers. So that is the rule to act in the customer's best interests, um, provide clear communication with clients, manage conflicts of interest, and establish appropriate management and control over your products. So in my view, it's probably not the wisest decision to allow underwriters to go off and write products just because they are targeting customers that are outside of the um, SME limit. Um, it's probably a better approach to continue to manage all your products within a product governance process, and where you identify specific products that are targeted to larger customers, or they are some of the products like aviation and marine that are default sort of large customer risk products, that those assessments are sort of a light touch assessment that doesn't involve as much work as if you were to um, complete a review on a product that is potentially targeted to vulnerable customers. Um, One that I've worked on in the past was a scooter scheme. Um, so most of those customers are likely to be considered vulnerable at the point of sale because, they have mobility issues and require a mobility scooter. Even if they're not considered vulnerable at the point of sale, your impact in in the poor handling of a claim for that type of product could cause that customer to become vulnerable because not having their scooter for an extended period of time would have a huge impact on their lifestyle. And so firms should have, robust claims handling processes around managing those risks. And that all should be put into that, all that work should be put into at the very front end of your product governance design, making sure that you foresee these sort of issues and have the appropriate controls in place to manage them. Okay, so now we're going to look at the product governance changes, enhancements, and improvements. So what does the FCA propose to change? They're proposing to change the review cycle under Prod 4.2. Um, what are the benefits of these changes? So I'll just bring up the actual changes first. So they're removing the 12-month minimum review frequency requirement for non-investment insurance products, and for firms to now determine the frequency of reviews based on each product's potential for customer harm. And the crucial element of this is firms must document their rationale for why they've decided to set the frequency they have set. High harm products may require a review cycle or frequency of more than 12 months. Um, so essentially, what this is saying is that instead of the default having to review all your products every 12 months, firms now have the ability to determine how frequently to review their products. And this allows firms to take a more targeted risk-based approach. You know, your low risk products that are performing well and probably targeted at, larger customers are less likely to require frequent reviews. And you can focus your efforts on your high risk products, where the data is suggesting that potentially there is potential for customer harm, um, considering factors such as complaints, denial rates, length that your customers have actually been with you as well. So, the longer your customers have been with you, I guess, the more risk there is to those customers being considered to be treated unfairly, and ensuring that those products continue to meet the expectations, needs, and continue to provide value to those customers. Ah, that smile looks like mine. So what are the proposed changes to the co-manufacturer arrangements? So firms can continue with the current rules, further clarity and guidance to come from the FCA on this, or now able to appoint a lead co-manufacturer responsible for the product governance rules, solely responsible for the product governance rules. All co-manufacturers must cooperate with the leader, i.e., sharing information across the distribution chain and between co-manufacturers. So the lead firm must be either an insurer or a Lloyd's managing agent, must not be an insurance broker. Um, yeah, so the reason why you can't, the insurance broker shouldn't be considered the lead co-manufacturer is because it's a bit of a conflict of interest. Essentially, the broker or the general managing agent doesn't have necessarily have skin in the game. They don't carry any risk. And so it might be perceived that this broker might actually put a product out there that isn't suitable for the intended customer and is solely based on driving commissions and profits for the broker. I think that's very unlikely, and I think the FCA might want to review their decision on that because I think if even if the broker has done all the heavy lifting, I doubt there'll be a situation where a lead insurer isn't reviewing that material and information robustly and actually providing a lot of challenge and review to make their own assessment as to whether that product is fair or not. And I do think that brokers do actually care about their customers and they're not just here for lots of commission, if I'm honest. But I do still also understand why the FCA has made that decision, because it does make sense that you kind of want to have some skin in the game, um, and carry a little bit of risk and be the driver, and be responsible for that product that's being released to the market. And here again, the lead must have significant involvement in the manufacturing of the insurance product. Um, so the leader must be responsible for compliance with the rules and liability for breaches and potential redress to customers. So that could be the lead co-manufacturer's sole responsibility, or they are also still able to contract those costs with the co-manufacturers. So this is sort of talking about a situation where a product has been identified to be causing customer harm, and the lead co-manufacturers has decided that they need to address the issue and make redress payments to customers, or make changes to the policy that and or bring customers aware of certain changes to the policy because of mistakes that have been made along the way. Um, yeah, so the lead co-manufacturer is responsible for that, but they can also contract to share those costs with the other co-manufacturers. There's nothing to stop them from doing that. So the next part of this is the bespoke contracts exclusion from Prod 4. Um, so a bespoke contract exclusion, this is where a product is specifically designed for a customer. Um, it's a brand new product and it hasn't sort of been written by you as an insurance company, or you haven't marketed it or distributed it to a market, even for a niche market. A customer has approached you and has made this specific request. You can use pre-existing product wordings when creating a bespoke contract. And the idea is that these type of contracts don't have to go through the product governance processes, because essentially the customer, this is at the customer's request. And yeah, essentially at the customer's request. So when is it a bespoke contract? What type of contracts are not bespoke contracts? Okay, right. Contracts where you've got different levels, so you've got like maybe a gold, silver, and bronze level of coverage. They're not going to be considered bespoke contracts. Contracts where you've got an optional extra that extends cover, they're not considered to be bespoke contracts. Um, yeah. Essentially, I think the crucial element here into determining whether a contract is bespoke or not is whether the product is marketed or offered for general distribution. If that is the case, then it will not be a bespoke contract, even if they are aimed at a very small target market. But I think if you're underwriter watching this, I think that the safest thing to do is, if you're unsure, you've got this sort of situation, it's always best to speak to your product governance manager, or your consumer duty and conduct risk team that can make that assessment for you and assist in making that determination. So what type of contracts are not bespoke contracts? Um, the bespoke contract exclusion should be available to all non-investment insurance products, both commercial and retail, including pure protection contracts. Um, if the new rule takes effect, insurers and brokers should be able to use the exclusion. So that this is the FCA widening the scope of use of this bespoke contract exclusion, enabling both commercial and retail customers, including pure protection products, to be included, and for insurers and brokers to be able to use the exclusion. I believe beforehand it was only brokers that were able to use the exclusion, if I'm correct. If I'm not correct on that, please do make a comment in the comment sections and let me know. Thank you. Um, okay, so this is a bit of a recap. Previously, rules required products to be reviewed every 12 months. The new consumer duty required for products to be reviewed regularly, which led to some inconsistency between consumer duty and the product governance rules. The FCA's proposal that firms should determine and document the frequency of product reviews based on its scope for customer harm arising from fixed risk factors associated with the product. So where potential is greater for where the potential harm is greater, the product should be reviewed more frequently, which as currently may be more than once a year if appropriate. Um, I think it's probably a good idea to have some sort of at least quarterly review of some level of quarterly review of all your products, um, like a review cycle that can tell you some data, and then some deep dive reviews depending on some of the information that you find on a quarterly basis. Um, but of course, not all of your products need to go through that because, your lower risk products that seem to be ticking on nicely without very many complaints and issues arising or poor customer feedback arising. Um, they might not need to be reviewed as frequently. Employer liability, ER requirements. So these are some of the other changes. Essentially, in a nutshell, I was going to go over this very quickly. The FCA considers that the establishment of LTO and LTO processes should be enough to cover off the protection for the customers in this regulatory environment, and the requirement for you know um, insurers to notify the FCA when carrying out employment liability insurance business is kind of out of date now, and so they're looking to scrap that. However, if there are any breaches, significant breaches, then firms are still required to report those under SUP 15(3), thus ensuring customers are appropriately protected and the FCA are aware of significant issues affecting that market. Professional learning and 15-hour CPD. So this also is sort of looking at being it's bit too over prescriptive and doesn't allow much flexibility. Some of some insurance professionals are going to complete a lot more than 15 hours. Some are going to need as much as that. So they're going to remove the 15 hours training development requirement for employees of non-investment insurance and funeral plan distributors. Um, and also remove specific monitoring and record keeping requirements in relation to these employees, although general record keeping requirements will continue to apply. And firms will still need to monitor the knowledge and competence of employees, but they'll have greater flexibility to demonstrate this in a way that's appropriate for their business and their employees' roles. So you can specifically, tailor your training approaches. Um, yeah, which is I think is a much better approach and allows you to, take a risk-based approach to this type of work and monitoring. So this document is kind of showing lifted from the FCA's website is kind of a overview of the product governance rules. I'll just minimize that so that everyone can see. Um, it's sort of explaining the reasons why they're making the changes and the benefits that are expected to take place because of the changes that have happened. So yeah, if you want to sort of just pause the screen here, then you can have a look at that and read that in your own time. And yes, so if you would like to discuss further, I'm happy for you to reach out to me directly. My telephone number, email address is here. Um, Generally speaking, I know that firms like to use large firms like Deloitte and EY to, give them some really good, robust review of their frameworks and compliance management. But sometimes I actually do think that sometimes a fresh pair of eyes like such as myself could be very useful before you go to some of those firms. Whilst they do provide some really good knowledge and information on these subjects and can provide a really good steer. Um, Sometimes they don't, I think they just look at what other firms do and sort of just say, well, yeah, they've seen best practice here, or they've seen this firm doing this and that firm doing that, but that might not necessarily be suitable for your business or how your business operates or the size of your business, you know? So um yeah, do reach out if you would like to discuss further. I'm happy to have a conversations and help out where I can. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much for joining, and that's the end of the presentation. Goodbye, take care.